We're diving into a story about a kingdom pushed right to the edge of collapse, a royal bloodline that everyone thought was completely wiped out, and a restoration so wild it honestly sounds like something out of a movie. It's an incredible look at just how fragile power can be and how hope can survive in the most unlikely places.
I mean, it's a question you see all throughout history, right? It's always wrapped up in ambition and betrayal. But the story we're getting into today, well, it has a particularly chilling answer. It's a masterclass in absolute ruthlessness. Yeah, you heard that right. The first move in this hostile takeover wasn't some clever political maneuver. It was a brutal family massacre, designed for one reason and one reason only: to wipe an entire royal line off the face of the earth. So this is where our story really kicks off, with this incredibly violent seizure of power. And to really get how it all went down, you need to meet the woman who orchestrated the whole thing. This is Athaliah. When her son, the king of Judah, is killed, she doesn't just mourn, she sees an opening. Her family, the infamous house of Ahab, was known for its bloody ambition. And her logic? It was terrifyingly simple. If all the other heirs from the house of David are dead, who's left to take the throne? Only her. Now, this is where you see the real clash happening. This wasn't just one family fighting another. It was like two completely different destinies at war. You had the house of David, which was built on this divine promise of an everlasting throne. And on the other side, you have the house of Ahab, notorious for its political assassinations and for pushing the worship of the pagan god Baal. Athaliah was literally trying to erase a legacy of faith to install her own legacy of force. So, Athaliah thinks her plan is foolproof. She believes she's destroyed every single descendant of David. But, in every great story about tyranny, there's always that one little spark of hope that just refuses to go out. In all the chaos and the slaughter, in a palace filled with death, her perfect, brutal plan had one single, tiny flaw. She missed one. His name was Joash, the last living heir of the Davidic line. Believe it or not, he was Athaliah's own grandson, an infant who represented the one thing she couldn't kill, that promise made to David's house. So how did he possibly survive? Well, because of this woman, Jehosheba. In the middle of the horror of her entire family being executed, she grabs this baby boy and his nurse and just runs. I mean, can you imagine the courage that took? Risking her own life to save the future of the entire dynasty? And where do you hide the one person the queen wants dead? In the temple of the Lord. It was brilliant. It was the one place Athaliah, a worshiper of Baal, would have completely ignored. So for 6 years while this tyrant queen is ruling from the palace, the true king is growing up in secret, right under her nose, inside the very house of God. Now, 6 years is a long time to keep a secret, especially one that big. But this wasn't just about hiding a kid. This was about waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And the man with the plan was Jehoshaba's husband, the high priest, Jehoiada. Just look at this timeline. For 6 long years, Athaliah is sitting on a throne she thinks is totally secure. The kingdom is suffering. But the whole time, in the quiet corridors of the temple, a counter-revolution is brewing. And in that 7th year, Jehoiada decides, okay, it's time. And this wasn't some reckless charge, it was a brilliantly planned coup. First, Jehoiada secretly gets all the commanders of the royal guard together inside the temple. Then, he reveals the boy Joash and proves David's line isn't broken. Can you imagine their shock? Then he arms them with these sacred weapons that actually belong to King David himself. And finally, he gets everything ready for the public ceremony. Okay, so all the pieces are in place. The plan is in motion. And this brings us to the climax of the whole story, the moment it all goes public. And how old was this hidden heir, this last hope for the entire kingdom? Get this, he was 7, just a 7-year-old kid who had spent his entire life in hiding, and he was about to take back a throne from a murderous tyrant. So when Jehoiada puts the crown on the boy's head and presents him to everybody, the temple just erupts. For the first time in 6 years, the people shout, "Long live the king." It was a sound of pure joy and just incredible relief. And that noise? It travels all the way to the palace. Athaliah rushes over to the temple, and she sees it all. The boy king, crowned, surrounded by his commanders, the people celebrating. All she can do is tear her robes and scream, "Treason! Treason!" But nobody's on her side anymore. She was dragged out of the temple and executed. And just like that, 6 years of tyranny were over in a single day. The last remnant of the corrupt house of Ahab was gone, and the line of David was back on the throne of Judah. But taking out the tyrant is just step one, right? The story doesn't end with Athaliah's death, because restoring the king was just the beginning. Now they had to restore the entire nation.
So, how do you heal a nation in a day? Well, the restoration had a few very clear steps. First, Jehoiada renewed the covenant, that sacred promise between God, the king, and the people. This reestablished who they were. Fired up by this, the people immediately went and tore down the temple of Baal that Athaliah had built. And only then, after all that, was the young King Joash escorted to the palace and finally placed on the royal throne. I mean, just look at the difference here. The transformation is night and day. The kingdom goes from fear and chaos under Athaliah to genuine joy and peace. Pagan worship gets replaced by a renewed covenant. And most importantly, a dynasty that everyone thought was completely broken was miraculously restored.
This one sentence from the account just says it all, doesn't it? After 6 years of turmoil, there was joy. After 6 years of fear, there was peace. The city was calm. The rightful order had returned. And that really brings us back to the core idea. This whole thing wasn't just a political thriller. For the people of Judah, this was the story of a divine promise being kept, a promise that their dynasty would survive. It shows that even when it looks like evil has completely won, when all hope seems lost, a single hidden seed of that promise can be enough to bring about a total restoration. So let me ask you, what's a promise that you've seen endure against all odds?